Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Alan Young. I'm with HospitalityNet, and I'm incredibly pleased to be joined by Matt Curry of MyDigitalOffice and Brian Fry of Commonwealth Hotels. This is a bit of a unique session, and it doesn't happen very often, so I'm super pleased. What we're going to be doing is taking a technology partner from what I would deem as the technology side of our industry and a hotel partner, and we're going to talk about how they work together and what they've seen over the past 24 months and how we can learn from what we've seen. It's always been a huge challenge. So this isn't a normal one-on-one executive interview. It's our executive interview 101 plus one, which is great. So Matt, welcome.
Thanks, Alan.
And if you wouldn't mind giving us thanks so much. It'd be great if you give us a little quick background about yourself and MyDigitalOffice, and then we'll go over to Brian.
Yeah, so Matt Curry, I'm Chief Revenue Officer at MyDigitalOffice, or many know us as MDO. But we are a hotel performance management platform. So we're a data management platform, information management. You could call it a lot of things, but centralized reporting for all of your hotels' various operational performance metrics, KPIs, even documents. So we have a digital night audit platform where we ingest a lot of the documents in addition to the data as well, but centralized reporting for hotel performance.
Cool. Thanks, Matt. And Brian, welcome to HospitalityNet and to HITEC TV.
Well, thank you very much. I'm Brian Fry, president of Commonwealth Hotels. We're a Northern Kentucky, greater Cincinnati based hotel management firm. We have 60 properties currently and have been in business for 35 years. So it's a nice, stable company that's been around for a long time with Hilton's, Hyatt's, Marriott's, Intercontinental Hotels, and the Radisson. So nice company.
Wow. So you're juggling a lot of contracts.
Yes, we are.
No kidding. Matt, it's interesting. You mentioned night audit, and my first job in the hotel industry was as a minibar attendant. My second job was as night audit, and we used to have what was called a site. And when you had a site with night audit, it meant you balanced like first try. And I think we used to drink afterwards. But
it didn't happen enough, did it?
No, it certainly did not. One of the things I really wanted to talk to you about today was, we've talked to a lot of hotel technology folks about how COVID has impacted them. But Brian, you were on the front lines. How did COVID impact your company from, literally day one when, we all started a lockdown to where we are today? And then, Matt, I'm going to pass it over to you, too, to answer that same question.
Well, I tell our entire team that the things that we went through during the pandemic and that we're still going through are going to make the greatest generation of hoteliers our industry has ever seen. The adversity that people have faced and dealt with on a daily basis, the uncertainty, the elevated expectations, both of cleanliness and service that have come out with limited resources. I mean, this is powerful stuff. And so really what we did during the pandemic, we had to furlough associates as virtually all of our industry had to do so. But we kept in touch with them and we maintained their benefits and we kept the relationships established and brought them back as quickly as we could and really tried to treat it as a temporary event. And we used technology like MyDigitalOffice to help us do that. There was a great deal of heightened analysis going on in real time, and the data was more important and critical than any other time in my career. I have to say it was a very stressful moment.
Right, and Matt, how did MyDigitalOffice deal with all of this?
Well, it was a wild ride for me personally. I just joined the company in December of 2019.
That's right.
So just a few months before everything officially, shut down. The idea. So I'm in Atlanta. Our company's based in Bethesda, Maryland. But the idea with me being in Atlanta was I was going to, and am building out the sales, marketing, customer success function in Atlanta and build out an actual office here. So my first few months, January, February, some of March, hiring, looking for office space, signed a 3-year lease on an office here in Alpharetta in February of 2020, we moved in the first week of March and we moved out the second week of March. So we were impacted in that way. Yeah.
Wow.
But could have been worse. But we were able to hang on to all of our people, thankfully. Obviously, as everyone, we had grand plans coming into 2020 from a hiring and scaling perspective, and even had our sights on starting to dip our toes into international markets, entering into Europe and other things in the second half of the year. Those things didn't happen. Clearly, all of the hiring froze, and we started to focus on some other things. We pivoted a little bit. We actually launched a new product because of COVID. It came from, so the first 2-3 weeks following everything kind of officially shutting down, so call it March, April timeframe, Ali, our founder and CEO, Ali and I spent most of our days for those first few weeks doing just on the phone with customers, asking everybody the same questions. How you doing? What are you seeing? What are you not seeing? Like, what do you need? What can we potentially do for you? Knowing that we're a data company, we have a lot of interesting ways that we're able to access information from a lot of your various, operating systems at your hotels. Like, what do you need that you don't have today? The most common response we got back from that question was that we need forward-looking information. We need to know what's coming versus what happened last week, because everything is, is in flux. So we launched a product called the Map Report. It's a forward-looking. It's a free resource, and that was also something that we wanted to do. If we launched a new product, it needed to be something that was free. We weren't going out to the market asking for money at that point. But a free forward-looking bookings report, basically. So Brian can go into any one of his hotels and look today to see what does he have on the books for one of his hotels in Cincinnati for the month of October.
Right.
And here we are on September 24th. And how's that compare to that of his respective market? So a lot of things changed from hiring to pivoting on some new products and focusing on customer success.
Yeah, so Brian, go ahead, Brian.
I'm sorry. I think Matt's underselling it a little bit. The capability of the technology was really powerful at the time, because what it allowed us to do was see the booking activity in real time throughout a competitive set, if you will, throughout the whole space. And so we could see movement of demand into the marketplace in real time, which at a time when, I hate to say this coming up on the winter here, but, we were very flat throughout the winter. It was kind of amazing. We had an established occupancy, and it seemed like we couldn't budge off of that occupancy across the whole portfolio. And seeing that demand in real time was incredibly encouraging and powerful. And we sort of mobilized the whole team around watching that data and activating around it. So, no, it was really good stuff.
So you can see that demand irrespective of brand.
Yes.
Yep. It's a data share model. So hotels opt in and say, yes, you can use my data anonymously, of course, in these aggregated market data sets, and in return, we're able to deliver them a benchmarking report for those hotels around them, regardless of brand.
Right. So that's really interesting from the forward-looking environment. But Brian, I want to talk to you about the resurgence of hospitality, if you want to call it that. How are the people that are in the front lines managing the process today, and what are you getting? What's the feel about what the guest expectations are like too?
Well, it's interesting. I think we've had different guest expectations depending on where we were in this cycle of this pandemic experience we've all been through.
Right.
So the early days of the pandemic, we had only essential travelers, right? People were only traveling because they had to. They had either project business they had to do. There was some commercial activity, very little leisure activity at that point. But the people who were traveled because they absolutely had to. And to tell you the truth, it felt like our guests were in the trenches with us at that point. People were very tolerant. We were dealing with masking. We were dealing with new cleanliness standards. We were dealing with a really sort of compromised supply chain all over the place for supplies and food and everything to do with the property, and then very limited staffing, right? That group gave way in the summertime to a very strong wave of pent-up leisure, which I know this is no surprise to your viewers, but it was a very shocking feeling for us, the whiplash our staff received with guests that had the same expectations they had in 2019 and 2018 and previously, that they didn't realize that the world had changed and that the demands had changed in what we were able to offer and what we had access to. And I think that the majority of hoteliers face that same thing. And you really had to embrace that challenge. Our teams had to really connect with the guests in a different way, really message it strongly, help them understand the reason there were limitations that we had, and address the guests' expectations in a different way than we have in the past. So very, very challenging. I'm curious, as we enter the latter half of the year here, are we about to shift back to that previous audience that's only on the road because they have to be on the road again through the winter months? I don't know yet, but I'm watching that very carefully right now.
Yeah, and when Matt, I guess this kind of goes to you then. When you're talking about market segmentation and travel segmentation, are you able to get to the data that kind of shows the type of traveler, or just what the pace looks like coming through the door?
Yeah, we certainly do pull segment level information in the aforementioned product that we launched, the free product that's still out there today. Subscribers to that don't see it yet today, broken down by market segment, but we do have that level of granularity in our paid subscription products.
Yeah, and it's so important. Everybody is stating the fact that business is going to come back, but who knows at what pace. It's still yet to be seen. I agree with you, Brian, that the winter's coming up, and that'll be an interesting time. I'm up in just north of Toronto, as you can see by my backdrop, but this is not a real picture. That our winter is about to start in another 3 weeks, and it'll be really, really interesting to see how our industry is going to deal with that, for sure.
Fingers crossed. I just got back from Dallas.
Right.
I'll be back there next week, obviously, for HITEC, but I was there this week for some customer meetings, and my group they were all staying at the Westin Las Colinas, and I was a late addition to the trip, couldn't get in because they were sold out, and that's a large property. So I had to go down the street to their sister Marriott property. That was also, I think I got the last room available. So wow. and that was all business travel. That was groups and meetings. So that was certainly great to see, hoping to see that continue.
Well, and it's interesting. We're seeing a very different phenomenon right now than we saw at the same time last year. We've been able to hold rate, and that is not something that, as an industry, we did a great job with previously during this cycle. So the fact that at least in our markets that we're in, and of course we're in 17 states, so we're pretty well distributed. We're seeing the majority of our comp sets are holding rate, which I think is a great sign. That people aren't panicking; they're being disciplined about the way they're approaching the demand, and I think that points to at least a positive sign.
Yeah, we've absolutely seen that change as well, specifically in the last 6 months or so.
Yep.
So technology has obviously helped, Brian, no doubt about it. If you had a crystal ball, a reverse-looking crystal ball, I guess, if you were able to say, if we had done this, and this, and if we had done it better, if we get hit again by something weird and awful as we've experienced, what kind of advice would you give other hoteliers and maybe even their technology partners?
Well, it's funny. I'm kind of a believer in unintended consequences, so I probably wouldn't have changed anything that we did. We executed very well and came through this cycle, intact, which is about all you could ask for in this situation.
Yeah, no kidding.
If I had it to do again, of course, I would have stockpiled a lot of PPE before the prices went up, but you can't have everything. Advice for hoteliers, though, I think we're in a critical moment in our industry where the limitations on labor and our access to workers is changing, and I think it's going to be fluid for a while. And we are going to have to, as an industry, address that phenomenon. We're going to have to make our jobs more desirable than they have been in the past. Yeah. I think part of that is living wages and making sure that our pay is correct. And I think we've spent a tremendous investment in our team recently, but I think it's more complex than that. It's going to be better opportunities. It's going to be training. It's going to be helping people understand that this is a career not just an hourly hand-to-mouth job. So it's interesting. I think we don't, as an industry, do a very good job of selling the fact that you don't need a great deal of education. Just a good work ethic and attitude will take you very far in the hospitality industry. And I don't think we sell that very well out in the greater world. I think data and technology is going to continue to be incredibly important. And one of the things I'm going to go back to my digital office again because Matt's here, but one of the things that we've gotten from my digital office that has been very valuable for us, we've changed the way that our general managers interact with data, because the data is now active and fluid and can be manipulated. You go from reading a standard report to being able to ask questions of the data and being able to engage with it in a different way. And I'm not saying that's in everybody's comfort zone, but we are having to develop more entrepreneurial general managers to succeed in this environment. And I think this is one of those tools that the brain gets rewired a little bit, I think, by interacting with the data rather than looking at a static report over and over again. And so I think that's a very valuable piece of what we've got with this tool. And I think that's a very valuable thing that we're going to have to learn as an industry to get better at.
And back to you, Brian. I think this is important as there is impact on the hospitality labor force. You hear a lot of people talking about doing more with less. Is that something that data could amplify and help you manage?
I like to think it could. Certainly at the support level, it can. We think that one of the things it does, it allows our managers to focus on the guests and our teams to focus on the guests, because I think that's where we often get lost. Every team that I've ever spoken to believes they have too much reporting, too many phone calls, too many meetings, and not enough time with the guests.
Too many spreadsheets.
I'm completely convinced that there's nobody who got into our industry to save 3 cents POR on their labor costs. Right. That's not why we're here. We're here to serve people, and we're here to take care of our guests who are putting their trust in us. And I think that giving back the time to do that is absolutely critical, and technology can absolutely help us do that.
Especially in a time like this, right? When back to the previous topic on the guest expectations and how they've not changed much in many ways.
They've gotten worse. I mean, they've gotten worse. They've gotten more stringent. They have higher expectations.
Yeah.
Well, and Matt, you've been traveling around like a I wouldn't say crazy person, but you've been busy.
Yeah.
What have you experienced as you've been traveling around different hotel properties from what you would have perceived as the type of service you would have got pre-pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, you certainly notice it, and especially, me being in the industry, you notice things that others that, Brian mentioned that just they don't understand. They show up and they expect the same thing. They don't understand that the world has changed. So I'm looking at it from a different lens, obviously, but you definitely see the labor shortages. You see the other services being cut, but what I've seen and what I've been impressed with is how over the top the frontline, front desk to housekeeping to everyone else, and servers, et cetera, how they've gone out of their way to try to educate me on what's going on. And so that's been really good to see, because I've seen others, whether I'm at the bar, at the restaurant, or checking into my room or whatever it is, that not in the industry, so not as aware, and I've seen how they've reacted to some of these limitations. Yeah, and but the staff that, for the most part, everywhere I've been over the last several weeks, the staff has been amazing.
I think one of the challenges is the traveling public these days don't really have a problem with voicing their displeasure.
Yeah.
And as a hotel operator, frontline employee, or even a company that may service products within that hotel environment, it's very, very problematic. And an example of that is a good friend of mine flew Air Canada this morning. He was always in the front and in the lounge and stuff, and the lounge has changed. Mm-hmm. So now you've got an app where you order your food and they deliver it to you at your seat, rather than all being together around the buffet or whatever you wish to call it. But what was delivered to him was in a paper box, and it was a quiche that looked like it had been thrown in a microwave. And on the one side, you say, okay, well, this is just wrong. I'm flying up front. I deserve more theoretically. But then on the back end, it's like, no, that's the world in which we're living currently. We want to get back to that other point, but we're having a problem doing that. From a hotel operations perspective, Brian, how do you coach and encourage your 50 plus properties to go ahead and make sure that people just, power through this from an operations perspective?
No, you hit the nail on the head. So fatigue is one of our greatest fears. And so we spend a great deal of energy making sure that our associates took a breather when they could. And we recognize that the summer, despite the fact that it was very busy, it's also a chance for our people to go and recharge their batteries and spend some time with family and really rebalance a little bit, because again, we're not out of this. It's going to get tight again and be tough. I think what they have to know, we can only do this business one guest at a time, right? And all you can do is do your best to anticipate the guest needs, do your best to deliver on the promise that they're expecting when they arrive at the hotel, and then deal with whatever disconnect there is between those two, right? So there are always going to be uncertainties or things that don't go the way as planned. And all we can do is have associates that are empowered and prepared to deal with those the best they can. I think one of the biggest challenges, honestly, and I find this part very interesting, the supply chain issues that we've all seen have been very intrusive. These are things that we all take for granted, and you just can't get the same stock that you had before. You just can't get the same products, and our guests really don't know that. And that's one of those things that you have to find a way that doesn't sound like an excuse, that anticipates that need, but at the same time helps educate and inform them that we're doing the best we can. And I think if we keep that attitude and keep it positive, I think good days will be ahead.
Yeah, that distribution infrastructure is one that's very challenged at the moment, and even down to the fact that there are not enough drivers for trucks. Right, it gets down to that level of granularity.
It's amazing. Our food vendor in Greater Cincinnati, we're here at this area here, and we've got half a dozen hotels across this market, and they said they went from 37 drivers to 6.
Wow!
And so they're trying to do the same amount of work with that few drivers. And it's no wonder, the entire system is just stretched. And I think it's a time when we all have to have a little grace. We all have to remember it when we're with the people that we're dealing with as well. And I think we'll all pull through it together, but it's definitely a challenging time.
Yeah, no kidding. It's just crazy. So before we jumped on this presentation, we were all in the green room, and Brian, you were talking about something very interesting, which was the relationship between a hotel company and its technology partner. And as I stated when we first started, this is not a usual kind of format. Usually we have a whole bunch of technology partners, or we have a whole bunch of hoteliers talking, but we don't necessarily get technology and hotels together. What does Commonwealth look for in its technology partners, and what does that technology partnership look like with MyDigitalOffice?
First, let me commend you for having this kind of a conversation, because I think you're right. I think we have a habit of pigeonholing hoteliers together, and we all talk around the same subjects, and we all sort of chase our tails. And I hate to say it, I don't know that a lot of innovation comes out of those conversations. As much as I really like my fellow hoteliers, I'm not sure that we're not all talking about the same thing. We tend to, observe things in circles. But I think when we make these connections in other industries and other disciplines, I think it opens us up to new learning and new opportunities that are going to make all of us smarter. I hope that's my hope.
Right.
What we look for in a vendor, and I'll be perfectly candid with you, I'm of the belief that in technical areas, it's almost impossible for a company of our size to maintain expertise at the level that we need to in technology. With our team, the way we view it is, as soon as we hire someone in on the team to take on a technology function, they become obsolete, because as soon as they do that, they're only engaged with the technology that we have at our company and whatever they're reading about. where a professional technology company is always innovating, always progressing, and pushing the limits of the technology. I think it's very hard to do for a company that's not our primary discipline. So first, let me say that's the first thing that we acknowledge and recognize. So with that, demands of a technology partner is someone who will listen and engage with us with the questions we're trying to ask. Because to be perfectly honest, I don't think anyone has achieved the level of data analysis or data capture that we're really looking for, right? I genuinely want the crystal ball. I'm a selfish guy. I really want to be able to predict the future and apply artificial intelligence to the questions and really elevate our industry a little bit, because I think there's an opportunity to do it. We have an opportunity to really look at demand in real time much better than we do today. I think that we make a lot of assumptions through the channels that the demand arrives at, and we pigeonhole them into different segments. I'm not sure that's real. And I think we're about to see the problems with that going forward, because I think this is going to be the age of the hybrid guest. I think guests are coming on a little bit of business and a little bit of leisure. And I think we're going to see our peak nights are going to shift. And I think we're going to see some real changes in the way our industry behaves. And I think if we get stuck in what we did in 2019, we're going to miss it. We're going to miss the boat, because that's not, the world has changed, and I don't think it's going back. So when we have a technology partner, and I think MyDigitalOffice has done a fabulous job in this area, we spend a lot of time together with their team asking questions and customizing the data and the way that we look at it. And for us, it's improving. I hope it's useful for them as well. But we look at it as a true partnership. We like to think that we can be a little bit of a test lab for what they're developing and what they're providing out to the marketplace. And we hope that we're asking questions that will improve the business for everybody. I don't think any of it's rocket science, at least at our level. These are simple questions. Who's the customer? What do they want? And how do we serve them better? And how do we control those costs while we do it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
MyDigitalOffice has really gone above and beyond with us to dig in and do the hard work of figuring out what those questions are and trying to deliver on our expectations.
Right. And Matt, over to you. This is a weird question, because obviously a technology partner in our world wants to connect to everybody and have everybody as the client, but that can't be, that can't happen.
Yep.
What does MyDigitalOffice look for in a hotel partner?
I mean, so it's a lot of what Brian and his team kind of bring to the table, right? I mean, we're still a relatively young company, although growing like crazy. We can only take on so much, right? Like you said, of course, we would love to have every customer tomorrow, but that's not realistic. We've got to continue to push and evolve, but not break. And so having partners like Commonwealth who allow us to use them as a lab sometimes with new things that we're working on, and are collaborative and treat the relationship as a partnership versus a vendor customer relationship is key. I mean, because we are true partners to all of our customers, and I think that's one of the things that sets us apart is the people behind this thing. I mean, we understand that Commonwealth's success is our success. Their failure is also our failure, right? So we're all in this thing together, trying to achieve similar things, and so it's the partnership relationship versus the vendor customer is key.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. So one last question, and then we'll probably wrap up the session. And I'm going to start with you, Matt. No crystal ball, but how do you think the industry is going to progress from a technology perspective over the next 6, 12, 18 months?
I mean, you've already seen so much in the last 12 to 18, right? So much technology has come out in the last several months that's been accelerated. That stuff that would have come out 5 years from now is already starting to show itself. But I mean, moving forward, I mean, for us, it's continued platform expansion. I mentioned we're a relatively young company, but we're already re-architecting our own tech stack, right? Because we know that to be able to stay relevant and to continue the growth trends that we have now, but to do that 5 years from now, 10, 15, 20 years from now, as we, start to go global and do other things, we have to have the most modernized architecture and tech stack behind it. So a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you'll see a lot of behind the scenes stuff from us, you won't technically see to continue to evolve. But a lot of the guest interaction evolution in technology is going to be interesting to see how much augments the interaction between the frontline workers and the guest, and then how much maybe replaces. You've got some people, that are, contactless check-in without talking to anybody. We'll see how far things like that go. But I personally like to see a smiling face when I show up. But you'll see a lot of that. You're seeing it all already accelerate again. Stuff that was maybe a few years down the road is already in flight.
Right.
So it'll be interesting.
And Brian, what do you see in the future? Related to operational. I guess operational challenges and wins, et cetera, and also technology within the next 12 to 18 months.
I think we're in a very interesting moment where we're all going to have to change, and it's funny, if we're not constantly evolving, we're losing ground in this industry, and I think that a huge event like this has made that clear to everyone. And so where in the past maybe you had to face headwinds and nostalgia and the bigger dogs kind of dragging everything backwards. I don't think you're going to see that right now. I think everyone has to rethink the way that we interact with our guests and our associates. And I think you're going to see a lot of that. And I think technology is going to have to help with that. So, some of the things we're exploring right now are really fascinating. The kind of benefits that technology can offer us. We are at the point where we can offer our associates real-time pay, as in they have a Visa card in their pocket, and as soon as they work their hours, that Visa card's connected to our payroll system. We only process the payroll once every 2 weeks, but the system allows them to access their funds post-earning, prior to payment, which is a really fascinating thing. And while I'm not sure it was something I would have sought out in another time, those kinds of benefits, those small little interactions that can make somebody's life easier, make us a little more desirable, we've got to explore those right now. I think that this concept of the hybrid guest and really getting to why people travel and why they're engaging with us and how to anticipate their needs better and do it in a way where we understand what the costs are with doing that in real time, it is going to be very, very valuable. At MyDigitalOffice, I talk to their team all the time about my dream of having a concept around what's the real-time GOP of every guest. What's the real expense impact of every single guest that comes through. Now, I can't calculate that myself as every guest comes through, but I think technology can help us do it and help us anticipate it. And I think that might be the sort of savings we can get that can offset the added expenses that we've seen through this cycle. And so, we're going to have to do things differently. And I think technology is certainly one of the key tools for making that happen.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for making the time to speak with us today. Matt Curry from MyDigitalOffice, Brian Fry from Commonwealth Hotels, thank you so very much and best of luck in the future.
Thank you, Alan.
It's been great. Thank you for putting it together, Alan.
Cheers.
Brian, great to see you.
Good to see you. Take care, Matt.